Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to create World 2 from Super Mario Bros. 3. This is the paper printout we'll be using to create not only World 2 but also 3, 4, and onwards. And yes, this is the actual scale we're creating it, so it's going to be very tiny. First things first, we need a nice layer of sand. And then we can start marking things out, like this random 3 at the top. I was gonna look it up, but I figured I'd throw my theories out there and let you guys correct me in the comments. My first thought was a secret to get to World 3 faster, like some type of shortcut, but I was also thinking maybe just because it's Mario Bros 3 they put a 3 there. If you happen to know or care to also speculate, let me know in the comments what you think this 3 means. Without using a paper printout, it's almost impossible to get the perfect mapping of the paths, so I cut out each of the paths and now we can just make a dotted line where we need to lay them down. But first, while it's still easy to move, let's get this onto the baking tray. I used a slightly lighter shade so the path kind of stands out from the map. We just have to get the basic shape of the path before we flatten it down, and then we can refine it a little bit more with some tools. This is a very time-consuming process, so I've sped it up for you. Our pathing looks amazing, so let's move on to creating our first detail, which is the rocks. I think it's funny in these older games how they don't actually make different sprites for different rocks, so they kind of just copy and paste this one rock all over the place, and I think that's due to hardware limitations. They can only put so many different sprites in the game, so it makes sense. It just kind of feels like cheating. I made up the method for creating these little spikes in one of my first videos where I made the Princess Tower from Clash Royale. Because I needed these little spikes on the side of the tower, and I guess this method came in handy again. And I probably won't use it again for a long time, but it's good to know I have that in my arsenal. I went ahead and filled in the different water spots on the map, and then we can work on creating the trees. You know my usual method of making trees is rolling together a bunch of little balls, but these are pine trees, so we need to create this tiny little archway, and that is going to be the top of our pine tree. Now this, I cannot tell you how ridiculously hard it is to keep these in place. I bent and smashed so many of these tree trunks trying to fill this in. And what's even worse is the tree tops, because you try to press them into the trunks and it smashes them, and as you can see here, it falls off quite often. I probably had an average of 2 to 3 fails per tree. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of hazy on the details of this game. It's probably been at least 10 years since I've played this game. But I will say that it's one of my favorite 2D Mario games. Something about it just makes it really enjoyable to play. If I remember right, you'll be seeing one of these doors on every single map, and you need to get a key somewhere in the map to be able to open this door. Now we need to create a few of these little mushroom houses, which, if I remember right, you visit these to get different items. This isn't the main castle, but we have just a small little sand castle here. This part I knew was going to be really tricky to create because it's so tiny, but we have to create some little hammer bros. Finally, on top of the hand, we have this little hammer top. After making this, I realized there's actually 3 hammer bros, but don't worry about that. Definitely the most detailed thing on this map is the castle. There's so many different layers and edges to it, but I think once it's all fully put together, it looks really cool. Oh yeah, and there's a third mushroom house here. Now, we are ready to get baked. After baking, I thought it was ready to start gluing on the paper details, but then I realized we're missing something. All of the dot markers across the level. So it's a little tricky to stick raw clay onto hardened clay, but it does work. After a second bake, now we can take those paper details, but since I kind of massacred the first map, I printed out a second one. We need to remove all of these little squares. And since I printed them on sticker paper, we can just peel off the back and stick them right onto the map. Finally, the princess screaming for help, and here it is, World 2 from Super Mario Bros. 3. If you haven't already, take a trip back in time and watch World 1. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.